Why retirement is the biggest illusion of all. Alan Watts. Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of your life, looking back. You've worked for 40, maybe 50 years. You followed the plan. You studied, you got the job, you climbed the ladder. You paid your taxes. You saved for the future. And now, finally, you reach this moment society told you to chase: retirement, the golden years, the reward. But as you stand there, with the noise of the workforce behind you, the silence ahead isn't peace. It's confusion. You ask yourself, now what? And in that simple question, everything unravels. Because maybe, just maybe, what you were chasing was never real. Maybe, as Alan Watts warned us, the entire concept of retirement is a mirage, a construct, a clever illusion designed not to liberate you at the end, but to control you at the beginning. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. When did you start living for the future instead of the present? Was it when you were told that getting good grades would lead to a good college? That a degree would lead to a stable job? That a stable job would lead to a secure retirement? It's a story we've all been told, a conveyor belt of life with one promise: if you sacrifice now, joy will come later. But what happens when later never arrives? Or worse, when it arrives and it feels empty?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Alan Watts once said, "We are only truly alive in the present moment, but we spend most of our lives preparing to live." That's the heart of this illusion. Retirement, as it's sold to us, isn't just a financial milestone. It's a philosophical trap. It tells us that life begins after the struggle is over. That fulfillment is delayed gratification. That your now is merely a tool for your someday. But what if that's backward? What if the purpose of life isn't to reach retirement, but to never need it? Think about the very idea of work. From childhood, we're conditioned to believe that work is something you must endure, that it's separate from joy, that it's not supposed to be meaningful, it's just the means to an end. But what if your work is your life? What if waiting to be free of it is like waiting to be free of breathing? Alan Watts challenged us to ask, what would you do if money were no object? But that question isn't just about passion. It's about presence. Because if you wouldn't do your job unless you were paid, then what exactly are you exchanging your life for? The illusion of retirement feeds off fear of being broke, fear of losing stability, fear of no longer mattering. So we play along. We pour money into retirement accounts, push our dreams aside, and put off our happiness for some vague promise of a future where we'll finally be free to live. But life is not a rehearsal. There is no dress rehearsal for the present moment. And yet, we treat our days like throwaways, hoping that someday the real show will begin. But here's the twist: retirement is not freedom. It's a continuation of the same mindset, only now, without the structure. But that's why so many retired people feel lost. Because they were never taught how to live without being told what to do. And their identity was built around productivity, not purpose. So when the job ends, their sense of self collapses. Who are you when you're no longer useful? That question haunts more people than we realize. We have to ask ourselves, what kind of life are we building if the best part is supposed to come at the end? It's like climbing a mountain only to realize the view was never the goal, the climb was. Every moment wasted in misery for the promise of future happiness is a moment never lived. We are trading our lives away for a myth. And let's talk about the economics of it. The idea of retirement was born in a very specific historical moment. It made sense in a world where people did back-breaking labor and lived to 65. But now, we live longer. We work digitally. The boundaries between work and life are blurred. The idea that you're supposed to work hard and then stop working altogether is not only outdated, it's dangerous. It encourages disconnection from purpose, from creativity, from contribution, and worst of all, it breeds regret. Alan Watts didn't just criticize modern life, he offered a radical alternative. He believed in play, in presence, in the art of living fully, not someday but now. And if we truly want to escape the illusion of retirement, we have to start there, not in our bank accounts, but in our awareness. The machinery of time, how the retirement myth destroys the present moment. Let's go deeper. Because this illusion of retirement isn't just about money or aging, it's about time. It's about how we relate to the ticking clock of life. And most of us, without realizing it, are trapped in a mechanical relationship with time that strips the present moment of its meaning. We treat now as a stepping stone to later. And in doing so, we lose the only thing that actually exists this moment, right here. Alan Watts warned us that time is not what we think it is. We treat it like a commodity, something to spend, waste, save, and manage. But time is not a bank account. It's not a resource you can hoard until you're ready to use it. Time is experience. And the moment you separate your experience from your purpose, you begin to live in fragments. You begin to live for something that doesn't exist, the future. Retirement, then, becomes the ultimate fantasy of control. The belief that if we just sacrifice enough nows, we'll eventually earn the right to enjoy them later. But here's the paradox. The more we live for the future, the less we truly live. Because the future never arrives as the future, it always arrives as now. And if we've spent our whole lives ignoring the present, we won't suddenly know how to embrace it when we retire. The machinery of time conditions us to postpone joy, to delay presence, to wait for permission. We're taught to see life as a timeline: school, work, retirement, death. But life doesn't unfold in straight lines. It unfolds in moments, one breath, one choice, one heartbeat at a time. Think about how deeply this affects us. We don't just delay our dreams, we delay our attention. We eat meals while scrolling through screens. We walk through nature without seeing it. We sit with people we love, but we're somewhere else entirely, in our heads, in our worries, in our next. And all the while we're telling ourselves later. I'll be present later. But later is a mirage. It keeps moving the closer you get. Watts understood that time, as we experience it, is a psychological construct. Yes, clocks exist. Schedules exist. But the feeling of time rushing past us, that's something we create. And it's fueled by the idea that we must earn our peace, that we must buy our way into freedom by sacrificing the now. This is the dark side of retirement thinking. It turns life into a transaction. It says, put in your 40 years and then you'll get your reward. But what if the reward was never meant to be in the future? What if it was hiding in plain sight, in the joy of the work itself, in the beauty of the ordinary, in the art of being fully here? Let's ask a dangerous question. What if retirement doesn't exist? Not just physically, but spiritually. What if the whole idea is a psychological escape hatch we invented because we couldn't face the discomfort of the present? What if we've built our entire working lives around the hope that one day we'll finally feel okay? But what if that okayness isn't something you find at 65, it's something you create moment by how you choose to live now? This isn't about being irresponsible. It's not about abandoning structure or planning. It's about refusing to sacrifice your aliveness in the name of an abstract future. Because here's the truth, most people don't live to retire. They retire to die, not physically, but internally. They stop growing, stop exploring, stop engaging. Why? Because the system trained them to see life as a duty. And once the duty is over, they don't know what's left. But you don't have to live that story. You can exit the machinery. You can step off the conveyor belt and realize that presence is not something you have to earn, it's your default state. You were born with it. As a child, you didn't need retirement to be happy. You didn't need a 5-year plan to play. You didn't need a pension to explore. You were curious, open, alive. So what happened? Somewhere along the line, society told you to grow up. And growing up, for most people, meant growing away from the moment. But the moment is all there is. And retirement, as a concept, only makes sense if you believe the present is something to escape. Once you reclaim the now not as a means to an end, but as the end itself, everything changes. Your work changes, your relationships change, your experience of time itself changes. You stop counting days and start feeling them. You stop chasing life and start living it. So here's the real question. What would your days look like if you stopped living for retirement and started living for reality? Not the fantasy of someday, but the sacredness of today. That's the shift. That's the awakening. And it begins when you stop letting the clock define your life and start letting your life define the clock. The death of purpose, why retirement often leads to emptiness, did not freedom. If we're being honest, truly honest, what most people call freedom in retirement is actually just a quiet kind of emptiness. Not because they lack money or time, but because they've lost their why. You see, when your entire life has been oriented around productivity, contribution, or even just the rhythm of routine, the sudden removal of that structure doesn't feel like liberation, it feels like disorientation. It feels like falling into a void, and that's when the truth hits. Without purpose, time becomes meaningless. Retirement doesn't give you freedom. It simply reveals whether or not you ever understood what freedom is in the first place. Let's not confuse rest with freedom. Yes, the body needs rest. The mind needs stillness. But the soul needs something else entirely. It needs a reason to wake up, a reason to engage, a reason to be. That reason doesn't have to be grandiose. It doesn't have to be a mission to change the world. But it must be yours. And here's where retirement becomes so dangerous. It promises freedom while quietly stripping you of the very thing that gave your days weight. When you've spent 40 years being somebody, an engineer, a teacher, a business owner, what happens when that identity disappears? Who are you without your title? Without your schedule? Without your usefulness? Alan Watts warned us, when you define yourself by what you do, you become terrified of not doing. And retirement, for many, is the first time they're forced to confront that terror. The phone stops ringing, but the calendar becomes empty. The deadlines vanish. And for the first time in decades, there's no external demand telling you what to do. It should feel like peace, but instead, it often feels like death. Not physical death, but the death of meaning. We've been sold a dangerous version of success, one that tells us to work hard so we can one day do nothing. But doing nothing is not the same as being. The human spirit is not meant to idle in neutral. It's meant to create, explore, connect, evolve. And when we stop giving ourselves a reason to do those things, we start to shrink. Not just mentally or emotionally, sometimes even physically. Studies show that many people experience a rapid decline after retirement. Why? Because they've stopped using the one thing that kept them alive, their purpose. And here's the bitter irony. The very system that trains us to chase retirement also trains us to outsource our purpose. We're told what kind of life to live, what kind of job to get, what kind of success to pursue. Rarely are we encouraged to ask the deeper questions: what makes me feel alive? What do I want to contribute? What lights me up when no one's watching? So when the external scaffolding falls away, we're left with a hollow shell, empty hours, empty goals, empty selves. But it doesn't have to be this way. The tragedy of retirement isn't that it happens, it's that we wait for it to start living. The truth is, you can retire from a job without retiring from life. You can step away from a career without stepping away from purpose. But that requires a mental shift. It requires us to stop thinking of purpose as a job title and start seeing it as a state of being. Purpose isn't always what you do, it's how you do it. It's the energy you bring to the moment, the intention behind your actions, the depth of your presence. Ask yourself this: if no one paid me, if no one praised me, if no one even noticed, what would I still do? That question is the gateway to real purpose. That question reveals the inner fire that retirement can't extinguish. Because when your purpose is internal, it doesn't retire. It evolves. It deepens. It becomes richer with age, not weaker. We need to redefine aging not as a decline, but as a deepening. Not as an end, but as an expansion. Imagine a life where every stage is infused with curiosity, contribution, and presence. A life where you don't retire from meaning, you grow into it. That's what Alan Watts was pointing at. The point of life is not to escape work, but to transform it, to align it, to make it an expression of your essence. Purpose is not a luxury. It's not optional. It's oxygen for the soul. And the moment you stop breathing purpose, you start dying in slow, invisible ways. So don't wait until retirement to ask who you are. Ask now. Ask why you're still in motion. Ask before the silence surrounds you and you have no choice but to face it. The art of living now, replacing retirement with lifelong presence and play. So, what do we do with all of this? If retirement, as we've been taught, is an illusion, if purpose doesn't come from a job, and the present moment is all we ever really have, then what replaces this outdated model? What fills the gap? The answer isn't complicated, yet it's one of the most difficult shifts we can make. We replace retirement with presence. We replace the illusion of someday with the art of living now. And we do it not through escape, but through play, curiosity, and conscious engagement with life as it is, not as we wish it would be in some distant future. Let's be clear, this isn't just about rejecting the idea of stopping work. It's about rejecting the idea that life is something you earn later. It's about untethering joy from outcome, purpose from productivity, and meaning from milestones. It's about waking up every day and asking not, what do I have to do? But how can I be fully alive today? The truth is, every moment you spend in alignment with what you love is a moment of freedom. But every act that flows from your true nature is a retirement from suffering. When you live this way, you don't retire at 65, you retire from fear, from pretense, from the belief that you need to become something else before you can be happy. Alan Watts often spoke of play, not childish play, but the deep, sacred play of being immersed in the dance of life. The kind of play where you lose track of time, not because you're distracted, but because you're so present that time itself dissolves. That's the real goal, not to stop working, but to start playing, to turn your life into a piece of art, to find the music in your movements, the poetry in your routines, the divine in the ordinary. But how do we do that in a world built on deadlines, bills, and responsibilities? We don't abandon our duties, we transform our relationship with them. Imagine approaching your job not as a burden, but as a vehicle for growth. Imagine seeing your daily commute not as wasted time, but as a sacred pause between the chapters of your day. Imagine speaking to your partner, your children, your friends not out of habit, but with presence, with reverence, with curiosity. That's how we retire from numbness and return to life. This shift demands practice. It demands that we become artists of attention, that we catch ourselves when we drift into autopilot and gently return to the moment. It demands that we reawaken wonder, that we remember how to see the world not as a machine to be optimized, but as a mystery to be lived. Because life is not a problem to be solved. It's not a ladder to be climbed. It's a river to swim in, a song to sing, a fire to sit beside. So ask yourself right now, what would your day look like if you approached it as a work of art? If you treated your time as sacred, not because it's scarce, but because it's yours? What if you stopped waiting for the permission slip called retirement and gave yourself the authority to live fully, now, without apology?